Hello, fifth graders. This is Miss Roll again. I'll be sharing a read aloud book with you today called Sailing the Unknown Around the World with Captain Cook. This book was written by Michael J. Rosen and is illustrated by Maria Cristina Pretelli. It has a pretty unique genre. It's considered historical fiction, but it's actually written in the style of a journal entry. Let me show you an example. So the author used his imagination about what it might have been like after 231 days of voyaging as an explorer on a ship and the sorts of encounters they would have had. Now, fifth graders, I assume you have a lot of background knowledge about what sorts of challenges and successes these explorers may have faced. And the historical fiction part of it, the part that's historical, is that it will follow the true events of Captain Cook. So, years ago, there were young boys who got into trouble and they were sometimes put to work on sailing ships. We're going to be reading about a boy who went all the way around the world on one of those ships to places that no European explorer had ever been before. Does that sound like a punishment to you? So in this work of historical fiction, we will be reading to see what life was like for this young boy and reading his fictional journal. Let's get started. The foreword says most of Earth was a frontier to Europeans in the 18th century, as uncharted and mysterious as another planet. British Captain James Cook commanded 3 exploratory voyages of Earth's unknown oceans and far-flung islands. Indeed, his first vessel, the Endeavour, discovered the unknown land of the South, now called Australia. A ship's crew typically included professional sailors and builders, as well as ne'er-do-wells and delinquents, such as young Nick, who were forced into service. The Endeavour also carried a variety of scientists and artists to document the plants, animals, people, and places the Endeavour encountered. Of the 94 crew members who set sail, a third of them died on the voyage. This journal of Nicholas Young is inspired by those kept by Cook and his scientists, which noted very little about the youngest sailor beyond these facts. They knew his name and his likely age, and that one of his duties was caring for the ship's milk goat, Navy, which had already sailed widely on a previous voyage, and that he was the first to sight both New Zealand and, after 2 years, 10 months, and 23 days at sea, the English coast. Nothing is known of Nick's life beyond this voyage. Okay, sailing the unknown. Here we're seeing a pretty cool illustration that shows us the path from England that this ship took. Ooh, circling some islands there. And then, of course, we're still seeing that they arrived back to England. We're seeing an image of the globe flattened out. So England on the east side here shows up again here. So they did encircle the globe that way. August 19th, 1768, Plymouth. Once there's a fair wind, Endeavour will leave England for a continent none has mapped, none knows exists. She will not return soon, if she returns. If someone finds this journal, my name was Nicholas Young, 11 years of age. We are 93 voices from England's every corner, plus 1 from the American colonies. Well, that gives me an idea of when this book may be set. Captain Cook and his officers, scientists and painters and their servants and dogs, theirs is the upper deck. We rogues forced to sail are below with the 16 Marines. I am the smallest, just taller than Navy, the goat. I think that was typically true of people who traveled on boats. It was wealthier and more prestigious folks who got to travel in the upper decks, and then poorer people and servants were always down below. August 25th, 1768, day 1. We weighed anchor, gulls drowned out farewells. First winds filled Endeavor's sails, ropes squeaked, timbers groaned. Providence sends the breezes, but she sails by our sweat. Day 7, the North Atlantic, 4 hours heaving, Endeavor shook like gambling dice. One boat and cages of hens all overboard. She is seaworthy, but we are seasick. Day 15, stifling heat. None can sleep but Navy. Do you remember who Navy is, 5th graders? That is their milk goat they brought along. None can be happy but the rats and cockroaches. 6 days later, on day 21, rope burns, lice, salt crusting on my face. Frayed ropes are our napkins, so greasy they light like candles, the light by which I write here. Day 29, Canary Islands. Months from shore, yet swallows still reach us. Do you know what swallows are, 5th graders? That's a kind of bird. It would be unusual that birds could fly so far away, unless perhaps they're close to a different shore. And through a porthole, a fish that flies. 5th graders, how does sea life sound so far to you? Would you enjoy being part of this journey or not? Day 61, the equator. Nighttime now matches daytime to the minute. Did you know that on the equator, the hours of daylight and hours of nighttime stay the same, 12 hours each day, because of the way the equator receives pretty even amounts of sunlight, being in the middle of our planet in its orbit and the way it's tilted. A seafarer's tradition, all who had not before crossed the equator were thrice dunked. I see an illustration of this happening over here. Do you know what thrice must mean? That's an old-fashioned word, but it has the prefix thra, which reminds me of 3. I suppose they were dunked under 3 times. Tied fast to the block, hoisted high, plunged, and yanked up, choking for air. Singing and drinking all night. Day 96, Rio de Janeiro. With each degree of latitude we drop. Temperature drops, but the sea violence rises. It is summer, yet snow blankets this southern world. Day 126. Sailors sing, shipmen bark, scientists lecture, only waves and navy hear me. Neither answers yes nor no to keep me company. How does that voyage sound to you now? Looks like perhaps this is our main character from whom we're experiencing this book's point of view about to get dunked at the equator, huh? Day 139, Tierra del Fuego, the land of fire. Strange people. They wear not even fig leaves for modesty or warmth, yet they survive this cold, their fires ever burning. Day 151, howling squalls and snow. Endeavor is a bottle tossing on angry swells. We rope down everything. Thrice captain cannot steer her through the straits. To me, that sounds like it was 3 times the captain tried steering the ship, the Endeavor, through a narrow amount of water between land. Day 152, Cape Horn. Every weight hauled below. At last she rounded the cape, the gate between the oceans. That is the area that separates the Pacific from the Atlantic. Day 190, seas and skies seem one. Upside down, the view's the same. Mists lift but reveal nothing. Hours repeat like the Marines drill, marching back and forth, going nowhere. Depression envelops endeavor. Only the cats and rats don't feel it. They play hide and seek. Navy gives but little milk. It says here, Tierra del Fuego, land of fire, angry swells and bitter cold. We long to feel the fires of the shore. They've experienced a lot of weather during that part of their journey. Day 234, Tahiti, land. Providence must invent it just to keep the lost from leaping overboard. They need those reassurances every now and then to keep them on their journey. Day 275. Well, before I read this, let me point out to you that Nick has experienced nothing but the surface of the ocean for 41 days, over 5 weeks. I'm sorry, it's been much longer than that now. I suppose I didn't stop sooner in the story. I'm going to continue. Day 275, we offer the Tahitian beads, clothes, yarn, all not to us. And they offer coconuts, fish, breadfruit, all not to them. This would be Eden, but for the mosquitoes. Even as one artist paints, they eat his pigments off the paper. Natives paint too. Their canvas is skin. They stab with bones to stain the flesh blue-black. Tattoo, they call this. And 7 mates now wear them forever. What if it's historically accurate that tattoo, the traditions of putting on tattoos, maybe came from a native culture? Cool. Day 298, thieves. They stole clothing, rakes, firearms, portholes, even our lightning rod. Endeavor is their treasure chest to plunder. Their island is ours. Is that a fair trade? Day 323. Every landing, the scientists collect new specimens. The crew collects provisions. Today we also leave with Tupia, who knows these islands and languages. Tayeto, his servant, plays a flute with his nostril. It does sound like they have taken Tupia, a native, along with Tayeto, his servant. I wonder if that was an agreement they reached or more of a forced situation that those natives would join them. Day 375. So many sickened with island disease. Chores are doubled, tripled. All hope is funneled into the mate's eyes atop the masthead. Captain will name the coast for him who spies it. Day 407. Land. I saw it on my watch. An island, the unknown continent, chalky cliffs, sandy bays, green-blue forests, violet mountains. Whoso voyages here will know this point as young Nick's head. Day 409, New Zealand. We anchored. Maori spears struck like lightning bolts. We want only fresh water, not fighting. Day 411. Maori returned to Endeavour with fish to trade, but seized Tayeto. To seize means that he took Tayeto. The Maori, people from that tribal group took Tayeto the servant. The Marines fired, the warriors' canoes scattered, Tayeto saved. Captain named this place Cape Kidnappers. Endless land yet to explore. On day 525, canoes, 100 warriors in each, stomp and chant. On land, they dance with limbs like snakes, tongues like snakes. A boy my age, Tehoreta, pressed his nose to mine, to Tayeto's. Maori greeting. I shook his hand in English greeting, and from 3 lands, the same laughing. The rest was misunderstanding. Maori made stew to eat of potatoes and our candles and shoes. Even stranger, we learned they are cannibals. They eat foes slain in battle. Day 574. Natives want us gone. They told Tupia we are demons. Our white faces prove us ghosts. We arrived on a giant bird with white wings. We row backward boats and see behind us without eyes. And what people have no women? Fifth graders, this reminds me of the book Encounter by Jane Yolen. I wonder if you've read that recently, where it shows from the natives' point of view that they did think at first, maybe certain tribes thought that white explorers were angels, but that their impression shifted quickly because of the way explorers treated them and exploited their resources. So here's an example of that again, that shifted perspective. Day 585, 6 months of food remains as we depart. If each man starves a bit more, quarrels not, captain, rule endeavor. Half side with the scientists for more exploration, half sigh only for home and roast beef. Day 602, winds write a new mystery. They pinch the sea as if between fingers, swirling water columns skyward. The spouts swell and vanish, and then only seabirds. Endeavor is their mystery. Day 603, Terra Australis Incognita, the unknown land of the South. Zachary cited what none from England has seen. Endless hills, beaches, capes. Captain gave English names to each. Day 604. Landed at a beach clustered with huts. Warriors threatened with lances while their people hid. Even as the captain's nephew set foot, the first on Terra Australis, first boots, not feet, their darts and stones rained upon us. Day 608, they will not trade, not for nails, ribbons, anything. No one knows how to ask, what do you want, people? But we know their answer, go away. Day 611, Botany Bay. Endless specimens for the scientists, cockatoos, lorikeets, oysters, crabs, creatures who breathe both air and water, and an 80-pound leaping mouse that outraces even our greyhounds. Can you imagine what this young explorer might call an 80-pound leaping mouse? Knowing that they're near Australia, I hope you have an accurate connection there. Oh, here the illustrator helps us out. Now do you know? Day 655, full sails, homeward bound. Yet Providence decided otherwise. A reef shatters our hull. And fifth graders, at this point, I want to point out, what do you think Providence represents in this writing? It sounds to me like something this person's referring to as their fate or perhaps their God. Providence decided otherwise. A reef shatters our hull because they collided with a reef. They have had to stop sailing instead of being homeward bound. Breaking timbers echo in the waves that flood us. Pumps cannot keep up. Firewood, cannons, all is thrown overboard. Still the water on board anchors us. Day 656, the very next day, every man tugging, she struggled free. Still we sank, until one mate thought to drag a sail beneath her hull. We can see that happening here in the illustration. The sea plugged the bandage inward, saving us. Now we repair in this inhospitable land of biting ants, stinging caterpillars, and fierce mosquitoes. That is on day 658. What a smart idea to plug a hole with the fabric from the sails so the force of the water pushing against it would create a seal. Day 721. Seaworthy again, empty barrels lashed everywhere for buoyancy. We attempt our escape, yet Endeavour hurls toward the reef's 8-foot teeth. The waves in this picture look pretty nasty. Nearly too late, Providence sends winds that save us from the watery inferno. Endeavour will not be pieces of the reef's collection. Day 730, we hoisted the English colors, leaving this continent claimed now for King George III. Day 761, homesickness reshapes clouds into signs of land. And day 831 in Batavia, Java, months repairing again. Worms have rotted the keel. Fever spreads its wildfire among us, and malaria claims first Tayeto, my friend. So they're suffering from pests like worms on their ship, from sickness like the fever, and malaria that ultimately killed Tayeto, who was our protagonist's friend. Day 834, now Tupia lost, his languages, his travels lost too. Day 852, our third Christmas at sea, but we have no glad tidings. Day 868, Prince's Island. A new disease boarded along with the fruit and water. Today there are but 9 to sail Endeavour. We are a floating hospital. Day 928, Cape Town, South Africa, another continent with still stranger species, serpent-necked ostriches, striped horses, cassowaries. Earth yet holds creatures that are nothing like anything else. The scientists must be thrilled. Day 1046. Are you doing the math here, 5th graders? How many days are in a year? How many years have they been sailing? We already heard it was their 3rd Christmas. A brig flying English colors brings last year's newspaper. Endeavour sunk, all perished. We must be a ghost ship. Wow, so back in Britain, the people there believe that the Endeavour has sunk. Day 1056. Land, I cried from the masthead. Home. Is that what we're seeing here? But England is now the unknown land to me. Nearly 14, I've seen more of Earth than anyone, excepting my shipmates, excepting Navy, who has twice our travels. That's a creative way of saying that the milk goat Navy has traveled like this before. 40,000 miles later, Endeavour, too, returned a different ship. Her skin of hull, lungs of sails, spine of mast, muscles of rope, surgeons in every port replaced them. What a great analogy comparing the ship's structures to a human's body, right? The skin, the lungs, the spine, and muscles. We brought home 1,400 strange creatures. We gave unknown lands new English names and opened a new world for colonies. On July 29th, 1771, home for mere days, some sign on for another voyage. Not young Nick, not Navy. Ah, my goat. She lived but weeks after our landing, her voyages by sea complete, as are mine. Signed, Nicholas Young. 5th graders, I hope you enjoyed hearing the story of sailing the unknown. At this point, you might imagine you were Nick, and do you think you would be the same, returning home? How might those voyages have changed you? And I wonder if you have experience with this, having been to someplace far away, and when you return home, it sometimes feels like no one can quite relate because they weren't there with you. How would that feel if you'd been gone for 3 years? Another question for reflection is, Why do you think the author used diary entries as the basis for this book instead of just telling us the story in another form? Fifth graders, there are two more questions related to this book for you to respond to in writing. Be sure to go to your Google Classroom and you're responding to Read Aloud's assignment there. And yeah, teachers look forward to hearing from you. Have a great day.